There are 17 Daedric Princes. Although all of them are powerful, none of them are equal. So which prince is the weakest? Which prince evokes the least fear and the least respect? I think that there are three main candidates: Mehrunes Dagon, Namira, and Meridia. I'll explain the reasons for each one's weakness in turn before finally giving my verdict. Mehrunes Dagon is the brute among the princes. He's the biggest, the strongest, and the most stupid. Mehrunes Dagon has repeatedly failed to conquer Tamriel. Not only is this testimony to his inability to learn a lesson, it's stupid because he has no good reason to invade in the first place. Dagon is a god with his own plane of oblivion, which is infinite and in which he can do anything. There is no real tangible gain in him conquering Tamriel. Some have argued that Dagon simply aimed to bring about change. It is in his nature as the prince of destruction and change. However, this must have been a secondary aim of his. No one launches an invasion with the intention of it failing. When one looks at the specifics of his invasion of Nirn, it becomes clear that Dagon isn't much of a strategist. The timing of his invasion was awful. For instance, why didn't he invade decades prior to the fourth game Oblivion, when Yeagar Tharn had overthrown the Emperor and greatly weakened the Empire? Or equally, why didn't he invade at the same time as the crisis in Morrowind with Dagoth-Ur? Moreover, he should have focused on destroying the Septims first. The Septim bloodline has the ability to light the dragonfires, blocking all Daedra from having a foothold on Nirn. However, Dagon attacked everywhere at once. He did not concentrate his armies in Cyrodiil as he should have done. Then there's the fact that his Oblivion gates are so easy to destroy. He basically has no one guarding his sigil stones. If you want to hear more about Mehrunes Dagon specifically, then I do have a video just on him that you can check out. Namira is equally as bad as Mehrunes Dagon. Namira is the Prince of Decay, which is straight away a worse sphere to be lord of. I'd argue that unlike Dagon, who is the lord of a fairly large and interesting sphere of influence, Namira is chiefly a lesser prince due to her more niche sphere. She is the patron of cannibals and generally repulsive practices. This naturally means that she has much less influence than other princes because her sphere is so small. Where Dagon's followers plot for his mass invasion, or where Molag Bal's work in his name to torment fellow mortals, Namira's followers simply gather in secret covens to occasionally eat human flesh. By its nature, this seems a far less grand following in its scale. Even Periite, the Daedric Prince of Disease, can have more of an effect than Namira. His diseases can spread across the continent, wreaking havoc in their wake. In light of the coronavirus, you wouldn't want to underestimate him. Next we have Meridia. Meridia is actually quite interesting. She was never originally a Daedric prince. Meridia was, to begin with, known as Merid Nunda, and she was a Magna G, a group of divine beings that fled to Aetherius soon after the creation of Mundus. For supposedly consorting with illicit spectra, she was cast out of Aetherius and took the mantle of a Daedric prince. Her sphere is the energy of living things. On the face of it, this might all seem pretty unique and interesting, and it is, but if we're talking about Daedric princes, she barely qualifies. She is unlikely to be as powerful as other princes because at least part of her power will have been invested in Nirn because she was associated with it even though she escaped. This is perhaps illustrated by the fact that she had to create her own realm from bending light from Magnus, the sun. The other Daedric princes had the power to merely create their own. On a moral level, she is far from a typical prince as well. Almost all the Daedric princes, apart from her and maybe Azura, are evil in some way. So if we're talking about the worst Daedric prince, then her upstanding morals certainly make her one of the worst princes. So we have Mehrunes Dagon, Namira and Meridia, but which of these three is the worst Daedric prince? Implicitly, I've established a few criteria: how far the Daedric prince is competent, how far they strike fear into their enemies, and how far their sphere of influence engenders power. In accordance with these, I think I'd have to say that Meridia appears to me the worst prince, and let me explain why. Mehrunes Dagon is clearly incompetent, but he is something of an archetypal prince. He strikes fear into the heart of his enemies, and he wields immense power, even among the princes. Although his invasions have failed, it's testimony to his strength that he was able to almost overthrow the entirety of the continent with just his armies. Equally, Namira might be the prince of a niche realm of oblivion, but she does strike fear into mortals. Humans are revolted by cannibals. Moreover, she's never made any decisions that would make me call her incompetent. She doesn't have any grand designs. Plus, although weak, I would argue that her ability to instill fear more than makes up for this. It's her reputation that makes up her power. Meridia fundamentally is not a traditional prince. Yes, she's powerful, able to field armies of Auroran Daedra that fulfill her wishes, but she doesn't strike fear into her enemies. Mortals even question how far she is a Daedra. She also seems to be competent, but again, the fact that she falls so far outside the box makes it hard to really call her a Daedric prince. Her crusade against the undead and her provenance make her highly unusual, and a Daedra hard to be in fear of. Don't mistake my argument for me asserting that I don't like her or that I don't find her interesting. On the contrary, Meridia is the most interesting prince of them all, but I find it hard to fully consider her one of them. In my opinion, I think there's a spectrum. You've got those on the extreme like Molag Bal and Mehrunes Dagon, and those at the other extreme like Meridia and maybe Azura. Thank you for watching this video. Please let me know what you think. Who is the worst Daedric prince in your mind? Anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.